Hello, and welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for July of 2023. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
And I'm Julia Mijas, and I'm in San Francisco, California.
Let's take a look at what's happening this month for you. Well, hello, Taurus. Let's start with Ceres, arguably your favorite planet because she rules your sign and house, and has to do with all the things you love the best, such as financial security, having a good, comfortable life of the body, and enjoying great food. Ceres is traveling along through Libra this month. She's finally getting up to speed after this year's retrograde stint that she spent in Libra and Virgo, and that was from early February to early May, but it's over now. And if things got all tangled up for you financially and it was kind of a mess, the really good news is that your beloved Earth Mother Goddess Ceres is moving on from all of that and has cleaned it all up. And now whatever plan you have at this point should probably serve you well going forward. It wouldn't be surprising if she had taken you on a journey into some overspending that you had been doing, and had been warning you the need to, kind of trim that overspending and to make sure that what you're spending on is quality instead of quantity or just plain out glitz. But now she's moving through your 6th house this month and will be here until mid-September. And she really likes to organize in this house. She really likes to get things shipshape. She likes you to create meal plans for what you're going to cook and how you're going to eat and how you're going to feed your family, including the pets, and how you're going to run your life and keep it cozy and stable and keep those good habits and systems at home. So she's going to really be focused on that for you until mid-September. On July 15th, something happens that is worth noticing. And that is that Ceres, which traveled in a retrograde span from 6 degrees Libra back to late Virgo and then turned direct, and has now found her way back to 6 degrees Libra where it all started. And so from this point on, middle of the month around July 15th, you should really, really be clear of those entanglements that happened earlier in the year. So definitely some relief. So Juno is traveling along through Cancer all month right here in your 3rd house. Juno is an asteroid goddess to do with committed relationship, whether that's personal as in a spouse or a business partnership. And so she's very social, and she always likes to look for who do I need to connect with? Who do I need to network with? How do I weave the fabric of society together? So I think she likes being in the 3rd house, which is a house of communication. She can get a little bit gossipy in this house, so watch out for that. Watch out for any, conversations that you might be having that would, be behind somebody's back, or be, a sort of a conversation about grievances, but not taking them to the person who can actually make a difference, which would probably be the person you're talking about instead of to. And so cleaning up your communications with everybody that's right around you, especially such as housemates, siblings, neighbors, the people that you see every day at work around you, but who you don't really feel that close to necessarily, but that you just see on a frequent basis. I would definitely avoid gossiping with them and instead bring warmth and sympathy, and maybe also a nudge for them to do something about their grievances instead of just pouring them into your own ear. Now I want to talk about Chiron, which is traveling along through Aries in your 12th house. I probably have mentioned this before, like maybe in a horoscope last year when Chiron went retrograde. That's what he's going to do this month. Chiron is the wounded healer, and Chiron brings us experiences that bring old wounds up to the surface, but often we don't realize that's what's happening while it's going on. Chiron does a triggering thing. And often what we feel is that something has just happened that has hurt us in the present, and we might not attach it to the past. But when we do see how it's related to the past, it can liberate us to let go of the painful thing that's happening in the present and instead put our attention on healing that past thing. And when we do that, we release some baggage that has been holding us back, that has been a drag on our tail, and thus pretty much assure that that trigger doesn't even have to bother us again next time. Now, Chiron's traveling on a 7-year journey through the sign of Aries, and he is in about year 4 of this journey, and has been working with us on issues of things like assertion, anger, self-protection, defense. And while Chiron is in Aries, is a really good time to look at how do you manage your own anger? How have you dealt with the anger that other people landed on you, maybe in childhood, like if you had a ragey parent, for example, or family member, how did you deal with that? Did you just stuff all of that trauma? Or, does it explode sometimes too? So Chiron is going to trigger some stuff like that and ask you to do a deeper healing than you've done before, and to release that baggage so that you can defend and protect yourself more effectively in the future without having to either shut it down or rage it out. So there's some pretty intense stuff. And Chiron is going to go retrograde on the 23rd of July. And so that's really a date to watch for these kinds of experiences. And that is when Chiron begins this year's retrograde journey to go more deeply into those old triggers and really look into the healing of them once and for all. I didn't mention that this is happening in your 12th house, and I think that's really important. This is a house of the unconscious. It's a house, I like to think of this as a house of the emotional weather system you grew up in your home of childhood. So if the 4th house has to do with your home of childhood, the 12th house has to do with the emotional weather, like the amniotic fluid of your home of childhood and all the feelings that were rolling around and forming mixed currents in that ocean of emotion. And with Chiron traveling through this house for 7 years, he's really stirring the pot. And so stuff might come up that's been buried really deep for a really long time and might bring up some family wounding that emerges through you and that you finally find yourself able to see. And as to whether it's time to mention that to other family members, I don't know. That's up to you. And you could certainly find out more about that in a more personal conversation with me or Julia or another astrologer. But I think that some stuff may come to the surface and it might even surprise you. So definitely something to keep our eyes on. Hey, Julia, what's up with the inner planets this month for Taurus?
Yes, well, hey there, Taurus. Lot of stuff going on in your 4th house this month. This is the house of family, home. It represents your parents, the people you live with, as well as your past. So Mars begins the month in your 4th house, and Mars is a little bit challenging. It's the planet of anger, but it's also the planet of drive and activity. And when Mars is in the 4th house, it's quite possible that you get a little bit pissy early in the month over things that happened a long time ago. It also might mean that you have some disagreements with your parents or people that you live with, but it can also help you to get a lot of work done in your house. If you have a lot of housing projects, this is a really good time for it. By July 10th, Mars enters your 5th house, where he's going to be for the rest of the month. The 5th house represents your children, if you have any. It's the house of dating. It's the house of gambling and games. And when Mars is in the 5th house, you know, the big challenges of this is if you do have any children, this can be a time of having a little bit of conflict with them, having some disagreements and frustrations with them. If you're currently dating now, you also might get really, really annoyed with some of the people that you're dating. Now, Mars in the 5th house, not a great time for gambling or betting or doing anything of that nature too. You might hit a losing streak, but it's a great time for physical activity, especially involving games. So if you play sports, if you want to get a little bit competitive, like do some competitive trivia or something of that nature, really great. And especially if you can do any creative projects where you really use your body, you know, which are really, really physical in some way, fabulous transit for that as well. Now, Mercury, the planet that represents your mind, starts the month in your 3rd house. This is a very natural place for Mercury. Mercury rules the 3rd via Gemini. And this can be a time, the first 10 days of the month, where you're going to be a lot more curious about learning more. Maybe you want to pick up some new skill sets, or maybe you, you know, just want to communicate or write a lot more in general, which are also represented by the 3rd house. You also might be communicating more with your siblings and neighbors, because that's what Mercury represents. Then by the 10th, Mercury enters the 4th house just as Mars is leaving it. So this is going to, from the 10th onwards, things are going to get a lot easier in the home front with Mars leaving this house and Mercury entering it, because Mercury is a lot more neutral than Mars. So with Mercury in this house, you could be thinking a lot about the past. Your mind could be very preoccupied with your domestic situation, maybe planning or strategizing things you want to do with your home, maybe thinking about a next move. And you might be communicating a lot more with your parents as well during this transit. Then by July 28th, Mercury enters the 5th house, joining Mars, where Mercury is just going to be wanting to have fun, wanting to play games. Mercury loves games too. You might be more drawn to computer games, word games too with Mercury. And if you do any creative writing, that's also a fabulous use of this transit as well. Now, finally, Venus, the planet of relationships, love, and beauty, is going to be in the 4th house all month. So Venus starts in the 4th, and she's going to go retrograde at the end of the month, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But when Venus is in the 4th house, this is bringing a little bit more harmony, luck, and pleasure to the home front. This can mean that you're getting along well with the people you live with, that you're enjoying being at home a lot more, that if you've got a relationship, you're just kind of, you know, hanging out around the house, being homebodies with your partner a lot more. And you might do things to beautify or make your home more elegant with Venus in the 4th house. Now, when Venus goes retrograde on the 22nd, this is going to be a time of relationship review for us all. And if you're currently in a relationship, you could be reviewing domestic things with your partner. So for example, you might be thinking to yourself, do I want to move in with my boyfriend or girlfriend? Or would I want to buy a home with my partner? Or does my partner and I, do we have the same sense of family and home together? Do we have a shared sense of this together? And if you're single, then you might be reviewing your past relationships under this light. Like, how are you going to create a home with your next partner? Do you want a family with your next partner? Do you want to have a relationship where you actually move in with somebody someday? These could be things that you could be thinking about. And since this house represents the past, and Venus retrograde can bring up old exes, you know, people you dated a long time ago, a lot of people might be coming out of your past now. So definitely be aware of that.
That's so important to remember about Venus retrograde. Hi, Jamie here. Horoscopes and moon videos are fascinating, but they're more general than personal. Did you know we run live workshops monthly and that you can get questions answered about your own chart there? This month's topic is harvesting your Jupiter luck, and in it you can find out when is the next time you'll have money luck, career luck, or relationship luck, or even a period of personal charisma that makes you especially persuasive and attractive to opportunity like a magnet. This workshop is expressly for our Tier 2 Patreon subscribers. It's easy to sign up at the Patreon link in the description below. I'd love to see you there. Now let's get back to the video. Well, Taurus, good news about the harmony of the moons this month. We have two moons, as we usually do, a full moon on July 3rd and a new moon on July 17, and both of them are loaded with harmony. And this is the first time we've had both moons loaded with harmony for many months now. So I'm really happy to be able to say it. So the first moon is landing right here in Capricorn in your 9th house. It opposes the sun in a happy little cluster with Juno and Mercury here in the sign of Cancer. And both the moons this month are really, really intuitive. They involve strong water connections. So there's these three Cancer placements. That's a water sign. Trining Saturn in Pisces, another water sign. And so the moon in Capricorn, the moon doesn't like being in Capricorn necessarily because Capricorn is the sign opposite to the moon's nature. The moon rules the sign of Cancer, and Capricorn is opposite to that, literally and metaphorically and all the ways. So moon in Capricorn can kind of clamp down on emotions. It can push back on emotions. It can stuff emotions, evade emotions, not paying attention to them. Moon in Capricorn thinks somehow that it's important to be strong and to not be soft and to not be wimpy. And so this moon landing in your 9th house has a very adventurous streak and seems to think that being strong and tough and self-contained and bold and adventurous is really, really important. But the Sun, Mercury, and Juno feel differently. They are much more sympathetic. They are much more warm and loving and nurturing. And these three occupying your 3rd house are really about this month's emphasis in the 3rd house. That domain that Julia was talking about, covering the people that are around you every day, like neighbors and, the person who runs the convenience store down the on the corner, your siblings, your, just people, housemates, people that you see superficially, but frequently. And this little grouping here in Cancer wants to bring a lot of warmth to those relationships and to your everyday communication, wants you to be communicating with warmth and really feeling into those conversations. Whereas this moon is kind of like saying, no, you got to get to work. You've got to be strong. You've got to be tough. You don't have time to stop and have that sympathetic conversation with somebody at the water cooler. So there's a dilemma here, but there's lots of help and lots of support. Saturn trines the sun and sextiles the moon, and Jupiter trines the moon and sextiles the sun. So we're calling this one Grow Your Emotional Intelligence. It does have loads of emotion because of all the placements in water, Cancer and Pisces. And the intelligence part is because of Mercury's placement here, and also the social adeptness of Juno. And then this is all balanced by that tough, rather hardened Capricorn moon. So there's going to be a lot of mirroring here. And you could find yourself on either end of it. You could be, that tough person who's reminding other people, we don't have time to feel all the feels right now. We got to get on with work or the big plan that we're working on. Or you might find yourself identifying with these Cancer placements and facing, somebody who's telling you that you've got to, clamp down or just take your attention off of emotions. But there is a wonderful capacity for intuition and intuitive insights embedded in both of these moons, but especially the second moon this month, which is coming up on the 17th. And we're calling this one, which is a new moon in Cancer, we're calling it Brilliant Psychic Insights. This features the sun and the moon together in your third house, continuing to exude this sympathy and nurturing, warm, even motherly quality in those everyday conversations, and feeling like there's a lot of connecting and bonding that you're doing in those everyday conversations. And it can feel really lovely, and it can have you feel more connected and more at home in those relationships with the people that you see every day, and and who you might, otherwise be more superficially connected to. So this particular moon has more stress than the first one, though. It has an opposition to Pluto. Pluto is going to bring in a feeling of power and control dynamics going on. You might feel like somebody is trying to manipulate you, or like somebody just has to have it their own way. Maybe they're being really controlling. So that might be a dynamic that crops up under this moon. And then also the sun and the moon square Chiron, which I talked about before as triggering old wounding that may have come from your family system, and which has remained largely in your unconscious all these years. And it might bring up quite a bit of anger. So one way I can imagine this dynamic playing out is that possibly in your personal life, or even potentially in your work life, somebody is getting really controlling with you, and it brings up a lot of anger in you because it reminds you of something from your childhood and how you couldn't then feel angry because it wasn't safe to feel angry. But now you can feel that because you're an adult. So watch out for these kind of dynamics, and turn it into a situation where you can, you turn down the volume, the emotional volume on the situation, and do something, respond to it in a way that's healing, that's calming and soothing and healing, and yet acknowledges the appropriate boundaries of everyone in the situation. And I have to tell you, there's a lot of great help, because Neptune here in Pisces trines the sun and the moon, helping your communication and giving you access to an intuition that really transcends anything that you could possibly know with your conscious mind, and gives you information that's, that runs deeper than that. You might even feel like there's some form of spiritual or otherworldly support going on for you in this situation. And then what I think is maybe the crown jewel of this moon, which is Uranus sextiling that sun and the moon. Uranus can bring insights that are like a bolt from the blue. And so that's why we're calling this one Brilliant Psychic Insights, because there is enough pressure here in this moon to make you have to be self-aware. And then there is such a great help that, an insight, a bolt from the blue can land with you as you come to a deeper understanding about what's really going on in this situation than you have before. So at the beginning of the month, we have a lot of placements here in the third house in the sign of Cancer, really lighting up this domain of neighbors and those people right around you and the communications with them, also the domain of learning and curiosity. And over the course of the month, things generally migrate on over to the fourth house. And that really happens very strongly when the sun moves into your fourth house right here and begins lighting up this zone of home and family, domestic life, heritage, and roots. Wherever the sun goes, we want to bring the sunlight of our high quality attention, because when we shed our high quality attention like sunlight, things can grow, things can flourish. And if you want something to grow, you have only to pay attention to it and pay positive attention to it. And I think that's really key. Positive attention, not negative attention, embarrassing, people, but positive attention, praising people. So when you bring praise and hallelujahs into your home while the sun is traveling along through the fourth house, it's such a wonderful time for yourself and everybody in your family. Now, the sun, of course, has a negative side. Every archetype does. It's certainly possible to be overbearing and too big of a personality for the environment wherever the sun goes. But what I'm telling you is it's not all about you, and it's never all about you. It's never really all about anybody, however much some people might wish that it was. But what I'm saying is when you, with the sun's passage into the fourth house, sweep into your home and in a kingly way, in a queenly way, just shine the light of your royal presence and give your attention to the people that you live with, things just go so much better. So your home life can really improve. This is a passage that goes on for about 30 days. It happens every year right around this time. And your home life can be just warm, loving, fun, and rollicking while the sun is passing through your fourth house.
Well, that's all for today. If you love Pandora Astrology's free and informative horoscopes, then please do hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share our horoscopes with your friends.
You can find out so much more about how this month's transits affect you in very personal timing in our monthly Patreon workshops. Find the link in the description below to get started. Enjoy your summer, and until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos.
Bye-bye.